I'm meteorologist Marcus Bailey for a weather update. It is Sunday, August 10th, 2025, and a pretty active weather pattern continues across much of the nation here. Severe weather threats to wrap up the weekend, heavy rain threats for some of those same areas leading into Monday, some big time heat building back over the next few days, and oh, yes, tropical season is upon us. May have to deal with a tropical storm, at least possibly a hurricane this week forming in the Atlantic. How will that play a role in the forecast in the lower 48? We'll kind of dive in. Let's talk about where we're at here on a Sunday afternoon. Very active weather pattern. Showers and thunderstorms, some very heavy rain. There's been a lot of flash flood warnings for parts of the Midwest, Wisconsin, Iowa, Missouri, eastern portions of Kansas. A very slow-moving cold front working through the heart of the country, hitting areas that were hit hard with heavy rain and even some severe weather on Saturday, under the gun again for Sunday. The Storm Prediction Center does have a low-end threat for severe weather in those areas I kind of mentioned that are dealing with already some very heavy rain. Portions of the UP of Michigan to Wisconsin, western Illinois, eastern Iowa, central Missouri, and back into Kansas, Oklahoma, the panhandle of Texas. There is a heightened risk for severe storms later on for Sunday for portions of eastern Colorado, southwestern Kansas, and the panhandle of Oklahoma, where there is a slight risk of level 2 out of 5 risk for severe thunderstorms. In terms of the probabilities, tornado threat is relatively low but not zero. That is along the I-25 corridor in eastern Colorado, from basically just north of Denver to the northeastern corner of New Mexico. Hail could be a more significant risk in those same areas, where we could see hail up to baseball size in some parts of eastern Colorado. And then damaging wind, also a big concern and a more widespread concern in eastern Colorado, northeastern New Mexico, southwestern Kansas, and the panhandle of Oklahoma as we go into your Sunday afternoon. In terms of the Day 2 probabilities, it's a much lower threat, and I will say that our severe weather threats kind of dwindle down as heat will begin to build back up over the coming days. But there is a marginal risk heading into Monday, the 11th, for portions of Texas. It's a level 1 out of 5 risk for severe thunderstorms. That will end up being a 0 threat for tornadoes and a lower threat, about 5%, for hail and wind, also sitting at about a 5% risk for severe weather heading into Monday in northern Texas. Let's go ahead and take a look at the severe weather threats here first, in that marginal risk, where we also have a flooding risk for portions of the Midwest, heavy rain as we go through the afternoon hours for portions of Missouri and Kansas, Nebraska, Illinois. And what's going to end up happening, we saw this on Saturday, is it's just going to be one wave after another. This would be through 4 o'clock Eastern time. Many of these locations that we're pointing to are in Central time. So think an hour behind, but this would be closer to dinner time. You could see some heavy rain, some stronger thunderstorms, maybe some gusty winds entering Kansas City, southwestern portions of Missouri near Springfield, even some heavy downpours in the southern suburbs of Chicago, possibly even in northern Indiana. That's going to continue through late night. I do think any severe weather threat would likely then diminish as we go into the overnight hours, and then you're left with a heavy rain threat as we go through the overnight in these same areas. Look at the regeneration of some of these storms in Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, and northwestern Indiana, even into southern Michigan and Wisconsin, with some heavy rainfall leading into the Monday morning commute as we get ready for work and school. In the higher severe weather risk around Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas for Sunday and Monday, you will start to see some of these storms firing by the early to mid-afternoon, just at the foot of the Rocky Mountains along the I-25 corridor. This would be around 2 o'clock Mountain Time in Colorado. where we would see some of these stronger thunderstorms. This will continue through the late afternoon and early evening hours as these storms continue to race east. Initially, this could be an isolated tornado threat, obviously, along the I-25 corridor, when some of these supercells would become discrete as they start to kind of become a bit more organized and line out. That is when it becomes more of a hail threat and a damaging wind threat. Those storms then really don't weaken much in terms of precipitation as we go into your Monday morning. This is the overnight hours, the panhandle of Oklahoma, parts of Kansas and Nebraska dealing with some significant rainfall. That's going to continue very early in the morning. Might be a little bit damp for commuters in Oklahoma City, or at least west of the city for Monday. No severe weather expected, but maybe some heavy rainfall for sure as we gear up for the work and school week. As mentioned earlier, the threat for flooding is a big concern here for Sunday. The highest threat is in Kansas, western Missouri, and a very small sliver of northern Oklahoma. A large swath, about a 10 to 15% chance of rainfall that could allow for flash flooding from Wisconsin all the way to just east of the Rockies. And a 5 to 10% chance kind of in the same location. That stretches all the way to the Canadian border in the UP of Michigan and northern portions of the lower peninsula of Michigan. There's also going to be potential for some significant flooding going on in the Carolinas and eastern Georgia right along the Atlantic coast, where they're dealing with near steady showers with not much movement and some heavy downpours into the southeastern portions of the country. The concern for the flooding is realistic. As you can see here, this takes us all the way till late Tuesday night on the 12th. Some of these areas that are in the gray pointing toward a chance of 4+ inches of rainfall. That would be in parts of eastern Iowa, western Illinois. You could see even maybe 4 to 4.5 around Kansas City, Missouri, northern Missouri as well. And some isolated spots of 2 to 3 inches in and around Kansas, Oklahoma, and then we also mentioned the potential for flooding along the Atlantic coast in the Carolinas, anywhere between 2 to 4 inches of rainfall down in the south and east. These are areas that are already heavily saturated, so it wouldn't take much to create some flash flooding scenarios in those locations. Please be aware of that, especially because a lot of this rain may continue into the overnight hours Sunday night into Monday when it's dark and it's impossible to see the depth of how deep the water is. Let's talk temperatures here. Obviously, it has been blazing hot, really from the desert southwest, but some of that heat has expanded to the east, which has included the south central plains. It's now already included much of the Midwest and Great Lakes, and now all of a sudden, New England is running extremely hot as well. This isn't really going to change much over the next several days. In fact, look for maybe a reprieve with some of this high heat up in the northern plains by Monday and Tuesday of this week. But the thought process is with this trough, and this could help parts of the Midwest as well, barely bringing some rain chances in by the middle of the week. No severe weather. It may bring the temperatures back closer to average for middle of August in parts of the Midwest, the Ohio River Valley, but it's brief. That trough is basically going to flatten the heat dome out. But look what's happening out to the west by Thursday, by Friday. The anomalies get higher and another band of intense heat really starting to shake out as we go to the end of the week. You're likely talking about 90s that will stretch all the way from the Gulf Coast to the southern provinces of Canada on the just north of the Great Lakes. Here coming up. So pretty intense heat and not going anywhere anytime soon. Let's head to the tropics here where we've got a lot of action, and obviously we're right at the beginning stages of hurricane season. 2 systems to watch right now. We've got a couple of systems that are called Inves. It's just kind of the beginning stages of some organization. Doesn't necessarily mean that they will become a tropical system. However, I do think one of those will have a decent chance of becoming, if not a tropical storm, potentially a hurricane. The first one right here, this Inves is heading into this yellow region. There's about an 80% chance of this actually forming some sort of tropical system. Right now, they are saying, 20% chance in the yellow over the next 7 days. So maybe not as much. obviously that's not going to have much of an impact on the United States as it would move into the central and eventually northern Atlantic. It's this area here that we're more concerned with here, and it's this little wave that has already just popped off the coast of Africa. All right, and that's what we typically see this time of year, is numerous waves coming off Africa and then interacting with the warm ocean water of the Atlantic. This whole red area is an 80% chance, so that's a pretty high-end threat that we will likely see at least some sort of tropical development. Potentially a tropical storm, could actually get as strong as a hurricane, judging on some of the projections. But it's so far out, it's so difficult to tell exactly where we're going to see the location. There are many models that take it into the Gulf and actually hitting the country of Mexico. There are some that go as far north as keeping this out to sea. So that is a widespread fan, right? So something we'll be watching. I think a good way to kind of illustrate this would be to show you the models. So this is a model ensemble. And essentially it is just several model scenarios all placed into one. We use this a lot for winter forecasting as well, because there can be a lot of solutions. It definitely has this strengthening in many scenarios. Look at all the green dots here. These are all different scenarios of where this potential tropical development could land. And as we progress through time, this takes us into early next week. This would be Monday. So this is going to be something that we're going to have to watch for well over a week before it would actually have any impact to the United States. But you can see by Tuesday, by Wednesday, look at all the scenarios where we're way up in the Atlantic. We've got a few options that could take aim on the East Coast. There's less options that take it into the Gulf, and only one right now that would actually take it into Mexico. So, again, way too early to know, but definitely keep an eye on this one here. This would not only actually, obviously have impacts for those that are along the Atlantic coast or the Gulf Coast, but this can often log jam weather patterns in the lower 48. If you get these hurricanes that come up very close to the coast, it prevents other weather patterns, weather systems that are trying to move west to east, making their way through the United States, and can kind of stall things out, which could keep some areas hot, some areas dry, some areas wet for extended period of time if this were to happen. Again, that's still another week to a week and a half and away that we'll have to keep an eye on. Meanwhile, while we look at the rest of the country here as we go through this week, again, you're going to have these numerous rain chances. I mentioned that trough that's going to dig into the eastern part of the country that should provide us with some needed rain opportunities for parts of the Midwest that have been running kind of dry, especially parts of Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, over the last couple of weeks, where we've been just baking across the Midwest since really early July. But overall, there's no significant severe weather aspects. Could you have some warnings here and there? Sure. Mainly hail, mainly damaging winds, kind of winding down the severe weather aspects because you're just running so hot. And a lot of these storms are just kind of your pop-up storms with no real guidance, forcing, or steering to kind of get these things going. Flooding will likely be a major concern. That's going to go over the next several days as we continue to roll through this week, and then we'll have to watch for potential tropical development and impacts and interaction with the United States as we head into next week. That'll do it for today's podcast. We'll have more updates, hopefully, here as we go along this week with any significant weather that may arise across the United States. If you are new to the channel, we always appreciate a like and subscribe. And you can shoot me a message anytime. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Have a great week. We'll talk to you soon, and God bless.